Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through stacks of sources to bring you the most, surprising and insightful nuggets of knowledge. And today, we're plunging into a world you probably recognize. Those really profound, sometimes startling quotes that seem to pop up everywhere, usually just signed Rumi.
It's amazing, isn't it? His words are just global now. You see them on social media, bookshops, even, coffee mugs. But there's often this feeling like, is there more to it? A whole universe behind these lines.
That is exactly our mission today. We're going way beyond just the surface quotes to explore the incredible life of Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi, the great Sufi poet, lived 1207 to 1273. We want to uncover the people who shaped him, the real heart of his spiritual thinking, and, what makes his poetry feel so timeless and personal.
Yeah, and our main guide for this is Annemarie Schimmel's fantastic book, Rumi's World. It's just brilliant at weaving together the history, the culture, Rumi's actual life with his mystical expressions. It gives you a real shortcut to understanding this hugely important figure. We'll be pulling out some key insights from her work.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. Rumi's beginnings. Now, instinctively, you might think bulk city, right? But Schimmel clarifies, his family's home was actually a smaller town, Wakish. It's north of the Oxus River, modern Afghanistan.
Right, and that's important. His father, Bahauddin Walid, wasn't just anybody. He was a really respected jurist, a preacher, but also known for having these, strong mystical leanings himself.
So Rumi grew up in this atmosphere. Spirituality, deep learning, it was all just there.
Exactly. It was woven into the fabric of their lives from the start.
And then the family undertook this huge journey westward, ending up in Konya, Anatolia. This wasn't just like moving house. It seems it was pushed by the Mongol advance.
Very likely, yes. The local ruler, the Khwarez Shah, had basically provoked Chinggis Khan's armies, and the result was devastating, a wave of destruction rolling west.
But Konya was different.
Konya was, relatively speaking, a haven. A flourishing kingdom, actually, under the Seljuks of Rum. It welcomed lots of refugees, scholars, artists from the East like Rumi's family. It became their new home and the place where Rumi's own path really took off.
So his father passes away in 1231, and Rumi, he steps into his father's role as a teacher. Pretty standard succession. But then, about a year later, someone crucial arrives.
Burhanuddin Muhakkik. He'd been one of Bahauddin's disciples. He comes to Konya and basically takes Rumi under his wing.
And what did he teach him? More formal scholarship?
Well, yes, but critically, Burhanuddin immersed Rumi in his own father's mystical writings, the Ma'arif, and he introduced him to the poetry of Sanai.
Sanai, he was important.
Hugely important. Sanai was really the first major poet to use this specific verse form, the Mathnawi, basically, long narrative poems and rhyming couplets for deep mystical teaching. He kind of created the template.
So that's the direct precursor to Rumi's own massive work, the Mathnawi.
Exactly. Burhanuddin laid that foundation. Rumi was a respected scholar following the path until everything changed.
Right, the big one. Late October 1244, he meets a total stranger, Shams of Tabriz.
And it's just electric, instantaneous. The famous story is Shams asks a question, maybe about comparative greatness of the Prophet Muhammad versus Bayezid Bastami, and Rumi, the established professor, just faints. He swoons.
Wow. And their connection after that.
That tense doesn't even cover it. They were inseparable. Days, months spent locked away together in what Rumi called pure divine love. They barely ate or slept, apparently. It was like a spiritual fusion.
But it didn't last. Shams vanished.
He disappeared. Twice, actually. The first time, Rumi's jealous disciples maybe drove him away. Rumi's son brought him back. The second time, around 1248, he vanished for good. Maybe murdered, maybe just left. We don't know for sure.
And the impact on Rumi must have been immense.
Utterly devastating. Rumi searched frantically, traveled to Damascus looking for him, but eventually the search turned inward, and he had this profound realization.
That Shams wasn't lost externally.
Exactly. He found Shams in himself, radiant as the moon. This wasn't just metaphorical, it led to something radical.
Which was?
He started writing poetry, lyrical poems, ghazals, pouring out his love and longing, but he signed them not with his own name, but with Shamsuddin's.
Why? As a tribute.
More than a tribute, it signified fana annihilation. Rumi felt his own ego, his self, had dissolved completely in the overwhelming love, the sun, that was Shams. He was Shams in a mystical sense. The Diwani Shams of Tabriz is the result.
That's incredible. But Shams wasn't the only key relationship, right? He had this inner circle.
Absolutely. After Shams' final disappearance, others stepped in. First, Salahuddin Zarkub, an old friend, a goldsmith. Not a scholar, quite simple, really.
A goldsmith. How did that connect?
Well, the story goes, Rumi heard the rhythmic hammering from Salahuddin's shop one day and was just swept into ecstatic whirling right there in the bazaar. Salahuddin became a new focus for his love, a mirror. Rumi even married his son to Salahuddin's daughter.
And then there was Husamuddin Chalebi.
Yes, Husamuddin became the real confidant, the scribe. It was for Husamuddin, at his request, that Rumi began dictating his magnum opus, the Mathnawi.
The didactic one, the teaching stories.
Precisely. And it's telling, Schimmel notes, that there's a 4-year gap in the dictation of the Mathnawi, between 1258 and 1262.
Why the gap?
Because both Salahuddin and Husamuddin's wife died in 1258. It suggests Rumi was deeply affected, needing that time for grief, maybe recalibration. It shows how much these personal connections fueled his creative spiritual flow.
It paints such a human picture. And all this is happening in Konya. We should probably talk about the city itself. It wasn't just a backdrop, was it?
Oh, not at all. Konya was Rumi's adopted home for nearly 50 years. It was a vibrant place, and you can still feel his presence there. You know, the famous Yeşil Turba, the green dome, his mausoleum with those iconic turquoise tiles. It's a landmark.
And the architecture Schimmel describes sounds amazing. The Karate Madres from 1251, dedicated to natural sciences.
Yes, by a friend of Rumi's, a minister. It has this incredible dome inside, patterned with stars, intricate tile work with Quranic verses. It speaks to a city valuing both science and spirit.
And then, just a few years later, the Ince Minarelli, the slender minaret madrasa, built in 1258. That was a really turbulent year, right? The Mongols took Baghdad.
Exactly. And Schimmel points out the calligraphy on its gate is different, a new, more flowing cursive style, maybe reflecting a shift in consciousness, a new artistic era dawning, even as the old Abbasid world collapsed.
So Konya wasn't static. It was alive, changing.
Absolutely. And think about the daily life Rumi would have seen. The bustling bazaars, the smell of spices, perfumes, cooking meats, the sweets Konya was famous for. All of that finds its way into his poetry as imagery.
He really drew from the everyday.
Constantly. He saw the divine reflected in the mundane.
And the Mevlevi order, the whirling dervishes, their practices were tied to Konya too.
Oh, very much so. The same as ceremonies, the whirling used to happen right there in the mausoleum complex before Ataturk turned it into a museum in 1925.
And that training Schimmel mentions sounds intense. 1,001 days.
Yeah, in the restored kitchen area, novices went through this incredibly rigorous process to become, well, cooked members, including that detail about practicing the whirl with a nail between the toes.
Ouch. For balance and control.
Precisely. To ensure the foot pivots perfectly, unwavering devotion. It shows the level of discipline involved.
So this transformation from scholar to this, well, ecstatic poet is really key to his poetic expression.
It is. The poetry wasn't just crafted. It often erupted from him, spontaneously. Especially, it seems, when music was playing or during the whirl itself.
And he left these two huge, distinct bodies of work.
Right. The Diwani Shams of Tabriz, which we mentioned, lyrical, passionate, often using Shams' name, and then the Mathnawi, over 25,000 verses, didactic, full of stories, parables, explanations of Sufi thought.
And it's interesting, you said the Mathnawi doesn't really name Shams.
Not explicitly, no. It's more elusive. Schimmel suggests Rumi uses figures like Yusuf Joseph from the Quran, whose beauty captivated Zuleika so much she sought him everywhere. That becomes a symbol for how Rumi now saw the divine beloved, reflected in everything after internalizing Shams.
What about the style? You mentioned the Mathnawi form, rhyming couplets. Did he stick to traditional forms?
Mostly, yes. The ghazal, the rubai, short 4-line poems. He used traditional Persian meters, quite strict ones, though sometimes he'd playfully complain about these forms being like fetters or chains.
But the language itself, it sounds very rhythmic.
Incredibly so. Lots of repetition, long refrains or anaphoras, really strong rhythms. It feels like dance music sometimes, reflecting how it often came about. Very sensory, too.
And he knew how to grab an audience. Schimmel mentions provocative openings, funny stories.
Oh, yeah. He wasn't above using humor or a bit of shock value to draw people in, even common proverbs. That satire about the ostrich, the camel bird asked to fly. It says, I'm a camel, asked to carry a load. Oh, I'm a bird. It's a perfect, funny image for someone shirking responsibility. He found lessons everywhere.
So how did Rumi himself see his poetry? Was it the ultimate truth?
No, not quite. He was actually quite humble about it. Schimmel says he saw his poems not as a full picture of reality, but maybe like a fragrance of heavenly apple trees, just a hint.
Right.
Or a nest built for the real meaning, the bird, to land in.
Like signposts.
Exactly. Beacon lights to guide the spiritually blind towards the beloved. They point the way, but they aren't the destination itself.
Okay, let's get into the core philosophy then. And it seems impossible to start anywhere but love. Schimmel even highlights ish, love, as the very first word in the calligraphy opening her chapter.
It has to be first. For Rumi, love isn't just an emotion, it's the fundamental force, the engine of the universe. Active, dynamic, transformative.
And he describes it with so many images, paradoxes.
Thousands. It's like he's trying to capture something ultimately indescribable. He calls love an alchemist's fire that turns stone to water, softening the hardest heart. Or a cook preparing spiritual food for us, a weaver joining things seamlessly, a sorcerer performing wonders, even a mother, like a pre-eternal Mary, nurturing souls.
Wow, and that idea of love as a treasure found in ruins.
Yeah, that connects directly to a hadith Qudsi, a divine saying where God says, I was a hidden treasure and wanted to be known, so I created creation. Love is that hidden treasure, the reason for everything, discovered often when our own structures, our egos, are in ruins.
Which leads nicely into how he saw us, humanity, kind of caught in the middle.
Precisely. Poised between beast and angel. We're unique, Rumi says, honored by God, Karamna, with free will, intellect, the capacity for divine love. But we're also vulnerable to our lower instincts, the nafs.
The nafs. That's a big concept in Sufism. How did Rumi see it?
Often in traditional ways, like a greedy dog, a ravenous wolf, sometimes even symbolized by a cunning woman in parables. It represents our base desires, egoism, worldliness. The fight against it is the greater holy war, the internal jihad.
So it's just bad, something to be crushed.
Well, here's where Rumi is nuanced. Yes, it needs to be struggled against, disciplined, but it can also be trained by love. He uses the image of the naf's camel. The camel is stubborn, represents the body and its needs, but if disciplined, it can carry you faithfully across the desert to the beloved.
So transforming the obstacle into the vehicle, that relates to self-knowledge.
Absolutely. The famous saying, who knows himself knows his Lord. Rumi illustrates this beautifully with the story of Ayaz, Sultan Mahmud of Ghazna's beloved slave.
Right, the one who kept his old clothes.
Exactly. Ayaz had a private room where he kept his old, worn-out shepherd's shoes and rough coat from before he met the Sultan. He'd visit them daily. Why? To remember his former poverty, his nothingness, so he could truly appreciate the Sultan's incredible generosity and grace.
So recognizing our own destitution helps us see God's bounty.
That's the idea. True self-knowledge isn't ego inflation. It's recognizing our dependence on the divine source.
What about intellect then? Aql, where does that fit in? Is it opposed to love?
Not exactly opposed, but limited. Rumi sees intellect as essential, a guide, a minister. You need it for discernment, for understanding scripture, for navigating the world. But he insists intellect alone cannot reach the ultimate reality. It can lead you to the door of the king's palace, but it can't enter the secret chamber of love.
He had that strong line, doesn't he? Love is from Adam and cunning intellect from Satan.
He does. It's provocative, maybe a bit hyperbolic, but it emphasizes that love operates on a different plane, an intuitive, heart-centered knowing that transcends logic. Intellect can be clever, even cunning, but love connects directly to our divine origin, like Adam.
And Rumi found spiritual lessons not just in texts, but everywhere in nature, didn't he? Especially the cycles in Konya.
Oh, absolutely. The changing seasons were a constant source of teaching for him. Winter wasn't just cold, it was like Khalwa, a time for spiritual retreat turning inward. And spring was Jilwa, manifestation, bursting forth, a symbol of resurrection after death.
Like the trees waiting patiently.
Yes. He talks about the trees waiting through winter, like the blind prophet Jacob waiting for news of his lost son Yusuf. Then spring comes like a breeze carrying the scent of Yusuf's shirt, bringing life and reunion. It's beautiful.
And animals too. He used them symbolically.
All the time. He was a keen observer. The crow might represent ugliness or materialism. The nightingale, classic symbol of the soul longing for the divine rose. The stork, whose call sounds like praise, representing piety. Even dogs, often seen negatively, could symbolize unwavering loyalty and faithfulness for Rumi.
Camels too, you mentioned.
Yes, the patient camel, always moving towards the goal, towards the Kaaba, the beloved. Parents are interesting. They learn to speak, symbolizing learning spiritual truths, but also the idea of dying before you die, like a parrot feigning death. And the donkey, well, the poor donkey usually represents the body, the material world, sensuality that needs to be guided or transcended.
Even everyday objects. Like chickpeas.
Right. There's a famous passage in the Mathnawi where chickpeas boiling in a pot complain about the suffering, but the cook reassures them that this boiling is necessary to make them tender, delicious, nourishing, a metaphor for how suffering endured with patience transforms the soul.
Amazing. Sugar for sweetness, salt for purification.
Eggs with the distinct white and yolk, symbolizing perhaps creation or the human condition, separate elements that ultimately find unity. He saw divine metaphors everywhere.
What about prayer? It clearly wasn't just formal ritual for him.
Far from it. Schimmel describes his intense personal prayer life, how his beard supposedly froze solid with tears one winter night. He saw formal prayer as important, the structure, but the essence was deep, heartfelt connection.
That quote, each of us turns to a different Qibla. What did he mean?
He meant that while Muslims formally pray towards Mecca, the Kaaba, Qibla, in a broader sense, everyone directs their life, their energy towards something: wealth, power, knowledge, pleasure. All these are different Qiblas, different ultimate goals people aim for. Only the true lover aims solely for God.
And does God hear all prayers, even clumsy ones?
Rumi definitely believes so. There's that wonderful story about Moses encountering a simple shepherd praying in the desert. The shepherd's prayer was very anthropomorphic. He was offering to mend God's socks, comb his hair, pick his lace.
Oh dear. And Moses corrected him.
Sternly. Moses told him off for blasphemy. But then God intervenes, gently rebuking Moses. God says, "You have separated my servant from me. I look not at the exterior and the words, but I look at the interior and the state of the heart. I understand all languages, even the silent sigh."
So intention matters more than the perfect words.
Infinitely more, the sincerity of the heart.
But why aren't all prayers answered then? At least not how we want.
Rumi addresses that too. Sometimes he suggests not getting what we pray for is actually a hidden grace. Maybe what we want would ultimately harm us. God's wisdom sees the bigger picture. Sometimes delay or denial is the answer, a form of protection.
And the highest form of prayer for him
Was complete absorption, loss of consciousness in the divine. A prayer beyond words, beyond thought, just being utterly present, lost in God. Silence.
Wow. Underlying all this, of course, is the Quran. How did Rumi engage with scripture?
Deeply. He was immersed in it. He believed, like many Sufis, that the Quran has layers of meaning, an outer literal meaning, zahir, and an inner deeper mystical meaning, batin. His own poetry, especially Mathnawi, he saw as an explanation of the mysteries of the Quran, an unfolding of that inner meaning.
And he used the prophets from the Quran constantly.
As archetypes, yes. Models for spiritual states and human experiences. Ibrahim, for example, is the ultimate model of submission to God, Islam, so total that the fire he was thrown into became a cool, safe rose garden, the embodiment of divine beauty. And as we said, often a symbol, a cipher for Shams, the beautiful beloved whose presence illuminates everything.
Musa, Moses.
The lawgiver, representing the path of rules and discipline, but also the one who received direct divine illumination from the burning bush. A light Rumi felt shone through Shams in his own time.
And Isa's
Jesus is pure spirit, the life-giving breath, often contrasted with his donkey, symbolizing the material body that carries the spirit. Rumi also dwells on the mystical idea of the virgin birth happening within the soul, the birth of the Christ spirit born out of the pangs of spiritual discipline and longing.
And Muhammad.
Muhammad, essential, the seal of the prophets, the chosen one, Mustafa, the helper of both worlds. For Rumi, Muhammad represents the pinnacle of human potential, the ultimate goal and purpose of creation. Shams himself is often described as an heir of the prophet, reflecting that same divine light.
Beyond the prophets, he also talks about saints, the Awliya.
Yes, the friends of God, those who have attained closeness to the divine and act as guides for humanity. Shams, for Rumi, was the supreme example, the perfect saint, a qualandur, a wandering mystic seemingly indifferent to conventions who had fully realized union with God. He was like a salamander, perfectly at home in the fire of divine love.
And he drew on earlier Sufi masters, too.
Definitely. He tells stories about figures like Bayezid Bistami, famous for his ecstatic utterances like, "Glory be to me, how great is my majesty." Rumi didn't see this as blasphemy, but as a sign of Bayezid's complete annihilation of self, fana. Bayezid had become such a perfect mirror that he simply reflected whatever divine attribute was shining on him, or he reflected the thoughts of people who came to him.
Utterly selfless in that sense.
Completely empty of ego. And then there's Hallaj.
The famous martyr, Ana Haq, I am the truth.
Yes, Mansur Hallaj, executed in Baghdad in 922 for statements like that. For Rumi, Hallaj symbolized the ultimate suffering endured for love of God. His cry, "Kill me, O my trustworthy friends, for in my being killed there is my life," wasn't a death wish.
It was about transformation.
Exactly. Death as a bridge to true eternal life. That total surrender, even unto death, is the necessary passage to union with the beloved. A terrifying but essential Sufi concept that Rumi explores deeply.
All these threads, the love, the poetry, the philosophy, the saints, they seem to come together in the Sama, the whirling dance.
They really do. The Mevlevi Sama, which it was organized more formally by Rumi's son, Sultan Walid, after his death, is not just random spinning, it's a highly symbolic ritual.
What does it symbolize?
Well, the dervishes start wearing black cloaks representing the ego, the earthly tomb. Then they shed the cloaks to reveal white gowns, the shroud, which becomes their spiritual body. They whirl, typically with one hand facing up to receive divine grace, the other facing down to bestow it on the world. It's a microcosm of the planets revolving around the sun, the soul revolving around God.
A constant turning towards the divine.
A continuous death and rebirth in love. As Rumi said, it represents the dance of the atoms, everything in the universe participating in this cosmic whirling around the beloved, an endless universe of whirling.
And the music is crucial, especially the reed flute, the ney.
Absolutely central. The Mathnawi famously begins with the song of the reed flute. The ney, cut from the reed bed, cries out with longing for its origin, its home.
Just like the soul.
Just like the soul, separated from its divine source, longs to return. That plaintive sound of the knee embodies the core Sufi yearning for union.
It's such a powerful, enduring image. Rumi's influence wasn't just confined to Konya, was it?
Oh no. His work spread throughout the Persian-speaking world and beyond, becoming a cornerstone of mystical thought and literature. And the Sama itself, the image of the whirling dervish, has become this instantly recognizable symbol of his spiritual legacy worldwide.
We have certainly journeyed through Rumi's world today, from his early life and those transformative encounters, the whole atmosphere of Konya, to the sheer depth of his poetry and his insights on love, the soul, nature, God.
It's a vast world, and that central call from Rumi to die before you die, to consciously let go of the lower self, the ego, to embrace a higher state of being, it still resonates so strongly.
It really does. Which makes you think, in our world, which is just full of noise, constant information, could things like Rumi's silent prayer, or that loss of consciousness, maybe even just letting go of our need to always control everything, could that actually be a path to deeper understanding, a deeper connection, not just with the divine, maybe, but with ourselves too?
It's a profound question. What small death to the ego, what letting go could open up space for new life, new understanding for you listening right now?
Something to definitely ponder. We hope this deep dive is giving you some fresh perspectives on the universe behind those famous Rumi quotes.